So the first drug I was on, and none of the drugs are fun. So it's not like taking vitamins. I mean, you can take. Actually, I've supplemented with a lot of non-prescription products, be it vitamins and magnesium and calcium, etc. But the prescription drugs, and when I was first diagnosed, there were no prescription drugs other than chemo drugs approved for myeloma. Since I've been diagnosed, 3 drugs have been rushed through the FDA and have been approved. All 3 of which, though, have some negative, and in some cases pretty severe side effects. The first drug that was approved has the most negative side effects, and that's the one I was on, a drug called outlived, or its generic name is thalidomide, which actually was available back in the 1950s and was used by women during their pregnancies to help them carry a baby to full term, where they might have had an early premature birth. The resultant side effects from the drug for women who gave birth in many instances were babies with deformed limbs. So it was taken off the market 40 years ago. Through a long chain of events, it was used in some rare cases in another disease, and I forget exactly the doctors and the exact events, but they were able to find that it might be effective in minimizing the growth of the M protein in myeloma patients, and was approved a few years ago. The side effects from the drug, I was only able to stay on it for about a year because one of the side effects for many patients is significant neuropathy, among other side effects, fatigue, and can have different effects on different people, but the neuropathy was the worst. So I stayed on it for about a year, and it did. My stem cell transplant put me into remission for about 18 months, and then the thalidomide put me into remission again for about 18 months. But eventually, since myeloma is an incurable disease currently, it does come back. But there are 2 other now drugs approved, one an IV and one an oral drug, a derivative of thalidomide called Revlimid, which are still available, one of which I will probably pursue starting on very soon. So in answer to your question, I was very lucky that I could change my life but still be able to retire and receive some disability. And was another very lucky intervention was my disease had come along slowly, and I probably would have realized it 10 years earlier if I would have really thought about it, because I continued to feel arthritic, and my arthritis, what I thought was osteoarthritis, was getting worse and worse, and was diagnosed with osteoarthritis. What it was the myeloma was growing over 10 years and causing bone pain. But I was lucky in that instance. I was lucky to be put in touch with one of the most excellent physicians in the United States. So, those at least were 3 ways of approaching disease and changing my life, to be able to manage, again, the disease and my health. The support I received from my wife is probably one of the reasons I've been so determined to stay as healthy as I can. My wife has been a major support through this. I think it certainly strengthened our marriage. That I was, so macho, I wasn't going to go in to get the first rounds of chemo or the drugs necessary to prepare you for the stem cell transplant. I said, we'll do them right at home. So she became the one that had to give me the shots and set up the chemo, to the point that she was so nervous the very first time. I had I can't even remember what the catheter was called, but it had 3 outlets on it. Yeah. She set it up incorrectly, and all of a sudden blood started spurting out Um, she did it so backwards or whatever, and basically if it didn't get reversed, I was going to bleed to death. You know, as my heart was pumping out blood on the floor, and she just absolutely panicked, and we corrected it. It's still here, and she for months became the one that was giving me all the shots and doing the chemo. I spent 6 weeks in the hospital for the stem cell transplant. She would leave. It was winter time, and she'd sleep in a chair by the window with blankets covering her every night. So it's been a good partnership. Quite frankly, I've totally ignored the mortality tables and don't even consider them as being relevant. Good. So I had a physician here in Cincinnati that I saw twice a quarter, and then the physician that I first worked with up at Northwestern. We drive up to Chicago once a quarter. I am in the process of changing to make my local physician actually in Indianapolis, which is only a 2-hour drive, because there is a physician who specializes in multiple myeloma in Indianapolis. And again, since I do have an advanced case, I want to be seeing physicians that have the most knowledge on this disease and are working with a multitude of myeloma patients. For example, the physician I see at Northwestern sees 1,000 myeloma patients annually, or has 1,000 patient caseload. The one in Indianapolis has a caseload of about 500 myeloma patients, whereas most physicians in Cincinnati, since there is not a specialist in Cincinnati, have a caseload much fewer than that. So one of my tactics, or part of my overall strategy, is to see the best physicians that insurance will allow, and so that is one activity that I'm pursuing. Another one, my M protein is coming up again, is beginning to come up, so I will pursue one of the 2 drugs that I'm not working 60, 70 hours a week anymore. I was at the peak of my career, and certainly when you get into your 50s, you're at the peak of your earnings career, so I had to walk away from that. Again, because the nurse practitioner I was working with had done a number of studies, and they felt quite positively that stress was a major inducer for myeloma. They felt it had a significant negative effect on your immune system, and basically myeloma is a disease of the immune system. Work was one of them. No matter what you read or learn, and I've been to lectures and have done a lot of reading, certainly the more nutritiously you eat seems to be positively correlated with improvements in health, especially for patients that have been diagnosed with cancer. I've always eaten pretty well anyways, but I've attempted to even more minimize eating, fatty foods or sugary foods. And I probably over supplement, but I take a multivitamin, and because of myeloma, calcium, magnesium pills, along with vitamin C and vitamin E. And there are some anecdotal studies that over-the-counter product called turmeric or coumarin. Coumarin also are beneficial for myeloma patients, so I also take that.